The tragic death of Big Boss Man came too soon, at just 41 years old. When fans think about Ray Traylor, they remember the big man in the blue uniform who scared them as kids. But what many don't know is how sad his final years really were, a story of fame that faded and a body that broke down too fast. Ray Traylor was born in Georgia on May 2, 1963. He grew up like many kids with big dreams and a strong work ethic. Before he put on the famous uniform, Ray worked as a real prison guard in Cobb County. This job would later give him the idea for his famous wrestling character. Ray was a big man, tall and strong, which made him perfect for the world of professional wrestling. Ray first stepped into the wrestling ring in 1985 when he joined Jim Crockett Promotions. Back then, he was just another big guy trying to make it. He started as what wrestlers call a jobber, someone who loses to make other wrestlers look good. Ray paid his dues in these early days, learning the ropes and taking his lumps from the more famous stars. A big break came for Ray in May 1986 when they changed his character. They called him Big Bubba Rogers and made him a bodyguard for Jim Cornette and his tag team, the Midnight Express. Even though he didn't talk much in this role, fans took notice of the big, scary man who could move so well. He started to have fights with big stars like Dusty Rhodes, which helped fans see him as a real threat. In 1987, Ray moved to another wrestling company called the Universal Wrestling Federation. There he beat a wrestler called One Man Gang to win his first big title, the UWF Heavyweight Championship. This was proof that the bosses believed in him. During this time, he joined forces with General Skandor Akbar and his group called Devastation Inc., which made him even more of a bad guy that fans loved to hate. The year 1988 changed Ray's life forever. He joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, and became the character we all know, Big Boss Man. With his nightstick, handcuffs, and blue prison guard uniform, he became a hit right away. A manager named Slick would walk him to the ring, and the boss man would beat up his foes, then handcuff them to the ropes and hit them some more. Fans loved to hate him, and his real-life background as a prison guard made the character feel real. Big Boss Man fought against the biggest stars of his time. He had big matches with Hulk Hogan, the biggest name in wrestling, and even got to fight him in a steel cage on NBC's Saturday Night Main Event. He teamed up with a wrestler named Akeem to form the Twin Towers, and they were one of the top bad guy teams in wrestling. They even played a big part in the famous fight between Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, which shows how important Boss Man had become. What made Big Boss Man stand out was how he moved in the ring. For a man over 300 pounds, he could run, jump, and even do moves off the top rope. Fans were amazed by what this big man could do. He worked hard to put on good matches every night, and the bosses noticed this. They kept giving him big matches and important stories because they knew he would deliver. But things started to change for Ray in 1993. He left WWF and went to World Championship Wrestling, WCW, where they gave him different names like The Boss, The Guardian Angel, The Man, and Big Bubba Rogers. None of these roles felt as special as Big Boss Man. He showed he could change his character, but the magic of his WWF days seemed gone. His career had hit a wall, and fans didn't connect with these new versions of Ray Traylor. Ray came back to WWF in 1998 during what fans call the Attitude Era. This time, his Boss Man character was darker. He wore all black instead of blue and worked as security for the owner, Vince McMahon, in a group called the Corporation. This put him in fights with the biggest star of that time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. While he was on TV a lot, the stories they gave him were often silly or mean. During this time, the Boss Man won the Hardcore Championship 4 times. These matches were wild and violent, with wrestlers using trash cans, chairs, and all kinds of objects as weapons. He also won the Tag Team Championship once with Ken Shamrock. This showed that even in his later years, Ray could still perform at a high level and was trusted by the company. Who can forget when Boss Man crashed Big Show's dad's funeral and drove away with the casket? Or when he fed Al Snow his own pet dog Pepper as a meal? These stories may have made some fans laugh, but they didn't help Ray's career in the long run. They made his character seem less serious and more like a cartoon bad guy. For a man who once seemed so real and scary, these silly stories took away some of his power. By the early 2000s, Ray's time in the spotlight was over. WWB let his contract end in 2003, and he made his last TV appearance that year. For a man who once fought the biggest names in wrestling, there weren't many calls coming in anymore. The business had moved on to new stars and Ray was left behind. He started to pull away from public life, making fewer and fewer appearances at fan events or wrestling shows. Away from the bright lights, Ray's health got worse. The years of bumps, falls, and the hard life on the road had taken a toll on his body. The man who once moved so well for his size now faced health problems that many wrestlers deal with after they stop performing. While we don't know all the details, it's common for retired wrestlers to struggle with pain, injuries, and the effects of years of physical punishment. Unlike some wrestlers who find new careers as trainers, commentators, or in movies, Ray seemed to fade from view. There were no big comeback stories or second acts for the Big Boss Man. The wrestling world that had once made him famous now had little place for him. This must have been hard for a man who had given so much to the business he loved. On September 22, 2004, Ray was at home with his family in Dallas, Georgia. His wife Angela stepped out of the room around 10 p.m., while their daughters were upstairs. When she came back, she found Ray unresponsive on the sofa. He had suffered a heart attack. At just 41 years old, the Big Boss Man was gone. What should have been the middle of his life became the end, leaving behind a wife and two daughters who loved him. News of his death spread quickly through the wrestling world. Fans and fellow wrestlers expressed shock and sadness. Marvin Ward, a promoter who had recently booked Ray for a show, called the news just tragic and could not believe how sudden it was. Online wrestling forums filled with fans sharing their favorite Boss Man memories and expressing their sorrow at his loss. What makes his death even more sad is how the wrestling world reacted or didn't react in an official way. There was no big tribute show, no special video packages on TV. The man who had given so much to entertain fans seemed to be quickly forgotten by the business he loved. While his friends and fans remembered him, the big wrestling companies moved on quickly, as they often do when a former star passes away. It wasn't until 2016, 12 long years after his death, that WWE finally put him in their Hall of Fame. His wife and daughters were there to accept the honor he should have received while he was still alive. This late recognition felt like too little, too late for a man who had been a key part of two different eras in WWE history. Behind the scary character, Ray Traylor was known by his friends as a kind and good man. Wrestling personality Terry Runnels shared stories of their close friendship, showing how different he was from his mean on-screen character. She talked about how supportive and caring he was, painting a picture of a man who was loved by those who knew him well. Some fans online have wondered if the hard life of wrestling played a role in his early death. While we don't know for sure, many wrestlers from that era faced health problems from the physical demands of the job, the constant travel, and sometimes the use of pain medications or steroids. The 1980s and 1990s saw many wrestlers die young, showing the dark side of this entertaining but dangerous profession. The story of Big Boss Man shows how hard the wrestling business can be. Stars who make us cheer and boo can be on top one day, then cast aside the next. Ray Traylor gave his body and his health to entertain wrestling fans. In return, he got a few good years in the spotlight, then was left to face his health problems alone. When we remember Big Boss Man, we should think about more than just the character in the blue uniform or black SWAT gear. We should remember Ray Traylor, a man who worked hard, moved like few big men could, and died far too young. We should remember how he started as a real prison guard and became one of the most famous bad guys in wrestling history. We should remember his matches with Hogan, his team with Akeem, and even his wild hardcore matches later in his career. The tragic death of Big Boss Man at 41 is sad, but how the wrestling world forgot him while he was still alive might be even sadder. Like many wrestlers, Ray gave everything to the business, but when he could no longer perform, the business moved on without much care for what happened to him next. His story reminds us that behind the characters we see on TV are real people, with real lives and families who miss them when they're gone too soon.